For today, there is nothing extra required for your flow, so whenever you have your space, go ahead and meet me in child's pose at the back of your mat. And when coming into your child's pose, bringing the big toes to touch, bring your knees a little bit wider. So we can start to work our way into the hips nice and slow, maybe a little bit into the inner thighs. So stay lifted as you move in toward your space. Pressing the forearms down to the earth so the chest is more lifted, and then allow your hips to kind of shimmy side to side nice and slow. And as your hips come a little bit closer to the heels with ease, bring your knees as wide as you'd like. And then once you feel like your hips have settled into their space, maybe start to come a little bit lower. Bringing the chest a little bit closer to the mat as your arms reach closer to the top of your mat. And eventually resting the forehead down. Maybe keeping that little sway side to side if that feels good. And just making your way into stillness when you feel ready. Allow the tailbone to reach into the space behind you, lengthening through the low back. And finding a heaviness in the hips, space along the side bodies, length along the spine. Maybe using your palms of your hands as a little nudge to reconnect those hips towards the heels. Slowly deepening the breath as you expand through the sides of the rib cage, the back walls of the rib cage, the back walls of the lungs. Trying to take up as much space with every inhale, using those exhales to cleanse, to restart. Inhales bring you a little bit deeper into your space. And feel free to close your eyes here, turn your focus inward, whether you're focusing on the breath, on the hips. Maybe sending the breath to the hips, maybe a little bit of both. And just 4 more breaths here in this space. And slowly start to walk your hands back toward your knees, coming upright, maybe bringing the knees a little bit closer toward one another. Sitting right on top of those heels, clicking those inner ankles toward one another, coming into Vajrasana, and finding a nice tall kneeling seat. Feeling that stretch through the tops of the ankles, finding a nice tall spine. And then go ahead and reach your fingertips back behind you. Lean back in space just enough to scoop that tailbone underneath. Press those hips forward, opening up through the front body. Rolling those shoulders out and open. Doesn't have to be big, just make it feel good. Enough where that is the reality. And then go ahead and exhale, lower down nice and slow. Keep those fingertips back behind you. We're going to do one more round. So scoop those that tailbone underneath you. Press those hip points forward As you lift those hips, you start to open up through the front of the body, lifting through the chest, rolling open through the shoulders. Maybe come up a little bit higher onto those fingertips. And then hips slowly come back down towards the heels. And then come forward into tabletop position. And then once you get into tabletop, go ahead and bump the hips side to side. Maybe tuck the toes. Working through the arches of the feet, coming out of that space. If being on tops of the feet is a little bit more intense for you. Working to the opposite direction for just a moment. Find some movement within the spine and the hips. Just wiggle things out, nothing structured, nothing necessary other than what you feel like would feel good here in this moment for just another few breaths. And then go ahead and find your center. Find that tabletop position, a few rounds of cat-cow here. So on your next inhale, lift those sit bones up towards the sky, allow the belly to fall, pull the chest and heart through, inhale. Exhale, round through the upper back, the mid back and the lower back, tailbone tucks underneath. Inhale, finding cow pose. Exhale, round. Inhale. Really trying to move through every segment of the spine, create that space along the way. Exhale, round. One more round, inhale. Drawing those shoulders down and away from here so you feel the shoulder blades go down the back body. Exhale, round it all out, spread through the shoulder blades. Length through the spine, stretching out through the back body. Inhale back to center, find that nice strong stable tabletop. And then from here, untuck the toes and go ahead and bring the right foot outside the right hand. And then go ahead and grip down through the earth, draw the chest forward like you're trying to reach those collarbones towards the top edge of the mat. Staying lifted within the low belly. Gentle press down through the top of the back foot, the back shin. And then try to scrub the right heel back toward you, towards the back right corner of the mat, as you pull the chest and heart forward a little bit more. Reach those sit bones back in space, really trying to find length and opening through that right hip, through the back line of that right leg. And then almost like you're really pulling that chest and heart forward, maybe finding a cow pose here in this space. And then go ahead and gaze it down to the thumbs. Go ahead and kickstand that left leg back behind you, maybe making your space a little bit bigger. And then prop up off the hands. So you're coming into that little modified side angle with a little kickstand to the back leg. Those right toes are still facing the top of the mat. And you're just going to make your way in and out of this space, bending in and out of that right knee. Again, feel free to adjust that back leg as you need. Maybe you want it more in line with that right foot. Maybe you're okay with the wider stance again, whatever feels good. Opening, closing into that right leg, feeling the space within the inner thighs. And feel free to stay lifted and come back into that right knee. Linger in this shape, feel the opening, the space that you're creating. And then again, feel free to stay lifted or bring those right fingertips inside that right foot and then sweep that left arm up and overhead. Spinning that right rib cage underneath you as the chest turns over towards the left side of the room. And then go ahead and close it all off. Left fingertips come down. Bring those left toes toward the back of the mat once more, back towards center. And then sit the hips back in space, coming to Ardha Hanuman half splits pose. As you've been doing, feel free to shift in and out of this space. Kind of find that sweet spot that feels best for you here in this moment. Maybe just working forward and back. Maybe lingering in a certain degree of length and spinning in and out through that right hip. Kind of like a corkscrew, that right leg. But in whatever space you choose to explore, you're staying lifted within the chest. So still reaching those collarbones towards the front edge of the mat. Still reaching those sit bones, that tailbone back behind you. So you're keeping that spine as long as you can as we move through these shapes. Pausing in a space that feels good for you and your body. And then shift your weight forward, plant the hands, bring that right knee back to meet the left. And then feel free to shimmy those hips side to side as they move over towards the left side. So untuck the toes, find your strong and stable tabletop position, and then go ahead and bring that left foot outside the left hand. Once that left foot plants, feel those sit bones reaching back in space as the collarbones reach forward. Feel how that right off the bat, that creates length in the backside of that left hip. All the way from the hip through the juicy part of that hamstring. And then maybe scrub a little bit stronger, turn the muscles on a little bit more, find some more activation as you scrub that left heel towards the back left corner of the mat. Pulling the chest and heart forward a little bit more. Strong through the low belly. Grounded through the right shin, top of the right foot. And then maybe finding a little cow shape here in this pose if that's accessible for you. At least feeling like that activation, that energy is happening. That lift of the sit bones. Maybe come up onto the fingertips if that gives you just a little bit more space. And then from here, go ahead and extend that right leg back behind you so those toes are now facing the left side of the room. Feel free to adjust your stance as you need. Maybe bringing that right leg underneath you more, maybe bringing it back a little bit further on your mat so you have more space, bigger base of support. And then come up out of this shape, lift your hands from the earth and shimmy your weight forward and back, working through the inner thighs. Still staying grounded through that right shin and top of the right foot so that you have support. Lifted through the inner arch of the left foot so you're nice and strongly supported in that space. Just coming forward and back, feeling how that sensation changes. What depth you're able to explore here in this moment, how they differ from left to right. Maybe it's not all that big of a difference. Maybe one side you feel more comfortable exploring your space. And then within the next breath or so, go ahead and settle into that space that feels comfortable to linger in. That feels like a really nice, feel-good opening. And then you can stay lifted, or you can bring those left fingertips inside the left foot. And then sweep that right arm up and overhead as you spin the chest towards the right side of the room, really sweeping and curling that left ribcage underneath you as you open up through the right side of the chest, trying to reach the heart towards the sky. And then reaching those right fingertips long up and overhead, trying to create as much space and length as you can in this more closed up shape. And then go ahead and bring the right fingertips back down to the earth inside that left foot. Bring the right toes toward the back of the mat once more so you're nice and centered. And then go ahead and sit the hips back in space, coming to Ardha Hanuman, left toes lift towards the sky. And then shifting your weight in and out, bending and straightening through that left leg, working through the back line of the body. You're just moving forward and back, or lingering in a space where you can kind of corkscrew through that left hip, internal and external rotation of that lower limb, or the entirety of the limb, I should say, because everything is moving together. We're not trying to twerk that knee or that ankle. Everything is moving in unison, if that is a space you choose to explore. Otherwise, you're settling into your shape. Sit bones are reaching backwards, collarbones are reaching forward. How long can you stretch out through your torso? Maybe walking those fingertips underneath you if you need a little bit more support. Plant the left foot, plant the hands. Left knee comes back to meet the right. And then shimmy those hips side to side. Tuck the toes, sit the hips up and back, downward facing dog. Now we already worked through the hips a little bit, but feel free to pedal out the feet, continuing to bump the hips left and right. Moving through the side bodies, moving through the lower body. Now putting a little bit more weight through the upper body. So if you need a little bit more warm-up, more preparation for the hands, feel free to palm the earth. Even in this downward facing dog, that's something that's still accessible. And within the next breath or so, trying to settle into your downward facing dog. Really lifting those hips up towards the sky. Tuning back into your breath. On your next inhale, right leg lifts. Exhale, drive that right knee towards the right elbow so that foot can plant outside the right hand. And then keeping those palms onto the earth, lift that heart towards the front of the room. Drop that back knee. Come up onto the fingertips and lift through the left hip point, that low belly. In this space, maybe like we did before, trying to gently scrub that right heel back and underneath. You feel the hamstring turn on. Nice and lifted in this space. And then go ahead and kickstand the left leg back behind you, right foot, right fingertips stay planted. Sweep that left arm up and overhead. Coming into that modified side ankle once more. Really pressing those hips towards the left side of the room, spinning the rib cage through that little keyhole that you've created for yourself. Reach those left fingertips long, really trying to expand in this shape. Close everything off, left hand plants. Bring those left toes back towards the back of the mat. Sit the hips back in space, Ardha Hanuman. Coming right into that feel-good space. Keeping a slight bend in that right knee as we continue to find length. Plant that right foot. Plant the hands, lift the back knee. Bring the right foot back to meet the left, high plank. Pause here just to integrate. And then soft bend in the knees as you lift the hips up and back, downward facing dog. Inhale, left leg lifts. Exhale, drive that left knee, left elbow. Nice and gently plant that left foot outside the left hand. Keeping those palms grounded, pull the chest and heart forward. Drop that back knee straight down. Feel the length through the front of that thigh. Maybe now coming up onto the fingertips so you can find a little bit more of a lift through the low belly. Turning on that left hamstring as you scrub that left heel back in space. Feeling that activation, feeling that lift. And then go ahead and kickstand that right leg back behind you or over towards the left. Left fingertips stay grounded as you scoop that right arm up and overhead. Spinning the chest over towards the right side of the room. Keeping that connection between left elbow, left inner thigh. Using that connection to help spin that chest over. Reach the right fingertips up and overhead. So you're feeling that twist, you're feeling that length through the right side body. Still staying lifted and supported in the low belly. And then go ahead and bring that right fingertips back down. Right toes back towards the back of the mat. Sit the hips back in space. Ardha Hanuman. Feeling that pull, that energetic pull towards opposite ends of the mat. As the crown of the head reaches forward, that tailbone reaches back. Feel how that connection alone creates a little bit more length within the back line of that left leg. Come on back into that left foot. Plant the hands. Lift that back knee. Left foot comes back to meet the right. Pause, stay integrate. And then bend the knees, lift the hips down, facing down. Inhale, right leg lifts. Exhale, drive that right knee to right elbow. Feel that connection happen to slowly plant that right foot outside the right hand. Come up onto fingertips, stay lifted within the back knee. Bringing that left hip point down to square the hips. Pull the chest and heart forward, draw those shoulder blades down the back body. Find a nice, strong, steady base of support here. Driving that left heel back. Scrubbing that right heel underneath you. Feel the legs turn on. And then go ahead and spin that left heel down, keeping that back leg lifted. Right fingertips can stay inside the sole, inside the right foot, or your forearm can come up onto the right thigh. And we're going to spin that left arm up and overhead. Come into a true side angle here. And as you spin that chest open, you're pressing those hips forward. You're staying active in the legs. Still using that connection, right elbow, left knee. Right elbow, right knee, goodness. Reaching through those left fingertips. Bring the left fingertips back down to the earth, spin onto the back toes. Find that lunge for just a moment, and then send the hips back in space. Lift those right toes coming into extended pyramid pose. Feel free to walk those fingertips back so nice and supportive. Draw that right hip back, that left hip forward. Reaching the crown of the head. Shoulders down and away from your ears. Plant the right foot. Plant the hands. Right foot comes back to meet the left. Pause. Bend in the knees, the hips lift, down facing dog. Inhale, left leg lifts. Exhale, drive that left knee, left elbow, make that connection so you can drop that left foot outside the hand with ease. Come onto the fingertips. Bring that right hip point down towards the earth so we can square things off here. Drive through that back heel. Scrub that left heel underneath you. Feel the legs turn on. Feel the pull of the left hip back. The pull of the right hip forward, and feel how that squares you off right into your center. And then drop that heel back. Spin that heel down. Plant the keep onto your left fingertips, or come lifted onto your left thigh. We're going to spin that right arm up and overhead, coming into our side angle. Still lifted through that back arch, so nice and supported in our lower body. Press those hips forward, and then spinning underneath with that left rib cage. And then reaching with that right hand up and overhead.
Feel the hips, torso, and upper body really help corkscrew you into this shape to not only find strength, but to find length and support here. Right fingertips come back down to the earth, spin onto those back toes, pause in that lunge before sending the hips back, coming into that extended pyramid pose. Left toes lift. Square off the hips. The gaze is beyond that front edge of the mat, so we can keep our spine nice and long, keep those shoulders away from your ears. Come back into that left foot, hands plant. Left foot comes back to meet the right, high plank. Soft bend to the knees, hips up and back, down, facing dog. One more round, same flow. So inhale, right leg lifts. Exhale, drive that right knee, right elbow. To bring the foot outside the hand. Up onto the fingertips. Feel the strength in that leg. Keep that scrubbing action of that right heel back. As you drive that left heel back to find length and strength in the hips. Drop that back heel. Stay grounded if that's a place you'd like to be, or lift yourself up. And then spin that left arm up and overhead as you pull everything over towards that left side of the room. Left hand comes back down. Spin onto the back toe, stay lifted. Send the hips back. Extended pyramid pose. Right toes are lifted, square off those hips. Spine is long. Ground down through that right foot. Hands plant. The right foot meets the left high plank. Downward facing dog. Inhale, left leg lifts. Exhale, drive that left knee, left elbow. Make that connection, drop the left foot. Hands can stay planted or come up onto fingertips. Square the hips, drop that right hip down. Lift it through the low belly. Scrub that left foot underneath you. Lift in from this space. Drop that right heel. Spin yourself open towards the right. Side angle. Remember thinking hips, torso, right arm reaching. Right hand plants once more, spin onto those back toes. Keep that back knee lifted as you send those hips back. Extended pyramid pose, those left toes lift. Drawing those collarbones nice and wide. When you think of those collarbones being nice and wide, you feel those shoulders want to come down away from your ears. You want those shoulder blades to come down the back body. Come back into that left foot, plant the hands. Left foot comes back to meet the right. Downward facing dog. Inhale, right leg lifts. Exhale, drive that right knee to the right elbow. And then go ahead and bring the right ankle over towards the left side of the room. We're going to come into pigeon pose. So slowly walk yourself down into this space. Walking those left toes back. Maybe you can stay lifted for a moment or so. Allow that back knee to drop. And then continue to walk those left toes back in space. And if this feels too big here in this moment, because I know I did say we didn't need props here in this moment, and we don't. There's always ways to modify if props aren't available. So this feels big. Go ahead and bring that left knee in. So rather than being extended in that back leg back behind you, draw that left knee in so that it's kissing the sole of that right foot. Or you can even keep it into a 90-90. Again, we can either come into 90-90 here in this position or draw that left knee all the way in and find a deer pose. And these are still really nice ways to get into that right hip. If full pigeon feels too big, or just not in our wheelhouse for today, so make the modifications that you need to allow this to feel good. Granted that this pose has a tendency to feel intense. So maybe if good doesn't ever feel like the word for you in pigeon pose, whatever allows this position to be accessible, to feel maintainable, and gives you the opportunity to explore, to linger. So if you're in a more modified version, you feel nice and supported, but you'd like to move deeper, fold it over that front right shin. Slowly walk yourself back up. And then if you were in a full pigeon pose, go ahead and now draw that left knee into a 90-90. If you were in any of the other two variations, come into this space, we'll meet here. And then go ahead and drive the left knee out and open, allowing the right knee to lift, come into a bear sit. Drawing the outer edges of the knees out and away, kind of open up symmetrically through the inner thighs. And then nice and slow from this space, go ahead and allow that left knee to drop all the way down, the right knee to drop in. So we're coming into that 90-90 shape now towards the back of the mat. Feel free to stay here. Feel free to come into that deer pose, bringing that knee in a little bit closer to the sole of the left foot. Or come into full pigeon. So go ahead and bring that right leg back. Use your fingertips to help come up and over on top of those hips. If you'd like to come into full pigeon. We're just gonna find our way onto the second side. And as we've done the whole class, again, pigeon is a big pose. If you don't feel like this is really as good as it can be for you today, if you're feeling a little bit stiffer, or if it just feels good in general, feel free to find that rock in and out of the space. My hips have felt a little bit tighter recently, so kind of finding this rock back and forth feels pretty good in this moment. So feel free to explore that for the next breath or so before officially settling into your shape. And whatever expression you chose for today, feel free to stay lifted if that's giving you all the sensations you're looking for in that left hip. Or if you'd like to find a little bit more depth, more intensity, more of a stretch into that space, feel free to fold over that left shin. Using those fingertips, maybe the forearms to help keep yourself supported. And 4 more breaths in this space. Wherever you are, trying to keep those hips square towards your shin, towards the back of the mat. Trying to drop that right hip point down. Wherever you moved into, come back into that upright position.
If you're in full pigeon here, draw that right knee in, come into that 90-90. We'll all be there. And then as we did before, go ahead and drive that right knee open, finding a bear sit. Letting the outer edges of the knees fall open, feel that symmetrical space. Then go ahead and fall over towards the right, coming to that 90-90 on the right side back towards the top of the mat. And then go ahead and plant the hands however you'd like to get there. It doesn't have to be graceful. Coming through plank, downward facing dog. Find a little bit more symmetry. And find 2 more breaths here, really lifting through the hips. And then go ahead and slowly come down onto the knees. Untuck the toes. Sit the hips back towards the heels. Fingertips beyond the toes. As you slowly lean back, curl that tailbone underneath you. Press the hips up and forward. Coming into a soft channel pose as you open through the chest, open through the shoulders. Gaze up towards the sky. Then slowly lower back down. Keeping those fingertips down behind you. Coming into one more round. Scoop the tailbone underneath, press those hips forward, feel the opening through the thighs, then through the low belly, then through the chest, then through the shoulders, and then maybe in towards the throat as you drop the head back behind you, if that feels good. And then slowly unravel. And then cross the ankles, find your sit bones towards the earth, and slowly lower yourself down onto your back. Allowing the soles of the feet to come to the earth, maybe wiggle them alongside the edges of the mat as the knees fall in toward one another. There's option 1, or you can bring the soles of the feet together, knees fall wide. And feel free to allow the feet to come away from your body. It doesn't have to be in towards the pelvis. It can be further away from you. That kind of opening might feel good. And then just go ahead and rest the palms of the hands on the belly, on the chest. Settling back into your breath. Even with those 2 separate options, always welcome to find your Shavasana if that's fine for you today. And wherever you choose to be, you're allowing your body to soften, to fall heavy into the earth. Allowing the limbs to draw open. Allowing all that energy you created to release into the space around you. Travel throughout your body. And allowing you to settle into this space and this orb of energy that you created for yourself.
this space is where I'm going to leave you for today. Feel free to stay for at least 5 to 10 more breaths to really settle into your space before transitioning back into whatever the rest of the day has in store for you. As always, thank you so much for practicing with me, and if you enjoy being here with me in this space, please feel free to like my video, subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing y'all next time. Have an awesome rest of your day.